Well, it's going to be Bucs against the Detroit Lions in the Motown City Monday night, 7 o'clock game. And we're going to find out probably today whether one Michael Evans might be involved. He would have to practice, if not today, probably by Friday or Saturday, coming off that hamstring injury. It's been about what they said, 4 weeks or so. Just watching him walk around, haven't seen him work out, but it seems like it wasn't as severe as the last time. So judging, based on last year, we could see Mike back. That would be huge for them. Noah Meka, he had the MRI. I think it's a more mild hamstring strain, but the word is, at least according to my sources and others, that he will be out this week anyway, which means you're going to have a lot of the same guys. The 5th, 6th, and 7th receivers out there, from Sterling Shepard and of course Johnson and Johnson.
I think Antonio Brown's available. I don't think he's doing anything.
You got to get him back from extradition. If you get an extradite him from Qatar or wherever the hell he is now, he might be able to help you. But no, I will say this: it was great that they got through a game. They finished a game, because remember, Mecca started it, and they were able to finish a game with their guys on the end of the roster like Tez Johnson and Cameron Johnson. But to start and play an entire game with those guys is a different deal, right? It's a different deal. And so, to beat the Detroit Lions, who they've been pretty obliterated in their secondary, and maybe more so now that Branch's appeal was upheld by Jordy Nelson, who he appealed it to.
Which, when you're down a bunch of your receivers, having your starting safety on the opposite team be suspended a game is huge.
It's nice. Yeah, it's nice. Kind of balances things out a little bit, like the whole San Francisco Bucs game was, kind of a war of attrition. They both had so many players out that who was going to be able to step up, and when it counted, and turned out to be the Bucs were able to make one or two more plays, and that was about it. But that could be similar matchup, right? Like, no, nothing's got to give because you have a bad secondary against a depleted wide receiver core. But if Mike is back, what it does, whether he's going to be the best version of Mike Evans or not, who knows, right? But what it does is it makes predictable coverage, right? They're going to keep a safety over top of him. You're able to run the passing game through him that way. We saw, for example, the sort of the shot plays in Atlanta where Emeka knew the safety was going to come down on Mike and was able to get one-on-ones in the post, and they were able to hit some plays down the field. So that would help you, whether he catches 3 balls or 10. It would certainly help you, but he's got to be healthy, and you don't want to rush him back, obviously. But this is a big game. All these games are huge. They lost to Philadelphia, who's certainly not out of the NFC picture by any means. If you lose to Detroit, at some point, these are teams I think are going to be in the playoffs in the NFC. So you're talking about head-to-head being the first tiebreaker. And you don't want to lose games to NFC teams because you want to have those games at home. So early in the season, but it still certainly means something. And the Bucs got to find a way to go up there and get a win. Some good news happened to them on Tuesday or Wednesday. I got my days mixed up. It's Wednesday. On Wednesday, Jamel Dean was named the NFC Defensive Player of the Week, which is big award, as you know, and especially big for him. This guy's having a not even quietly, but really a tremendous year. Now, he did miss a game. The previous week he came out against Philadelphia. He missed last week's game at Seattle with an injury, but he made it back into the lineup after just 1 week. And not just that, but he made 2 of the bigger plays of the game, including his first career sack and a game-sealing interception at the end there. So, Jamel, you can't say this enough. The guy took a tremendous pay cut. He went from like $12 million or so to 4.5, essentially to stay on the roster. And in doing so, the exchange was that next season, 2026, that whole year was voided from his contract, so he becomes a free agent in March. Well, my experience has been that guys play really, really hard when they're in their final season of their contract. I think we're seeing that from Rashad White. I know we're seeing it from Jamel Dean. And, on his 29th birthday, no less, yesterday, he got the NFC Defensive Player of the Week honors. His first career sack. I think Bowles was hysterical describing it and just saying that with his tongue in cheek, I think. But he said that next to Mike Evans, final catch of the regular season last year to put him over 1,000 yards, he said that sack was about as exciting of a play as he's ever seen as a coach. But Jamel did a nice job. I mean, he doesn't blitz much, probably for good reason. But he said he'd been sitting over there watching guys pass rush and got the shoulder dip right, and kind of ducked underneath him, and not only got the quarterback on the ground, got the ball out. Obviously the Bucs weren't able to recover it, and then to have the game-sealing interception. That was huge at the 14-yard line in the fourth quarter. Just kind of sank, had good depth on it. Quarterback held the ball, and then when he finally thought he was going to go a stick route, finally threw it out there, and Jamel caught it. And that's big news. Anytime he catches a pass has been big news because he's dropped a ton of them, and he's worked really, really hard on his hands. And he said, one of the things he did that's helped him is he's been catching the ball in practice, doing extra work, moving, not just standing stationary and catching it from the jugs gun, but actually, while his feet are going, tracking the ball that way. So it was a good day for him. Look, I like the kid. He's really been a pretty fine player. I'm not sure one way or the other he comes back because I think the future is here with Benjamin Morrison and Jacob Parrish. But if you can get Zion McCallum back this week and he's in play, they kind of cast up that thumb of his last week. They didn't let him play, but I think this week he might. The secondary has really become a strength of this football team all of a sudden.
It has, and remember last year was decimated by injuries. And, that was the big thing. Antoine Winfield Jr. was not healthy last year. Jamel Dean was not healthy last year. I mean, you go through the list.
Right.
And then, last year they had Tyke Smith, who played, nickel corner last year, but they've now
played
moved
nickel.
to safety.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You drafted Jacob Parrish and Benjamin Morrison.
Yep.
And they look really good.
Yeah, we just haven't seen enough of Ben because he's been hurt.
Yep.
But,
right, but Christian Izzian's done a nice job back there. Zion McCollum has developed into a good cornerback.
Yeah.
And you've got depth now back there, which even a year ago we were saying there was no depth, and you questioned it.
Right.
And it's amazing how quickly you can turn it around.
I think teams attacked it, and I think having Winfield, even though he played 9 games or so, he was just never himself. He was injured on the first week. Then he had another injury later in the season, and he hasn't made the splash plays just yet, but I think you certainly feel him back there. He still can blitz. It's a matter of time before he gets his hands on some interceptions. Maybe it'll be this week. We'll see. But it's a different deal when he's in the lineup and he's healthy.
He had a near one the other day. Was it last week or the week before?
Oh yeah, the week before. Yeah, should have had one. Yeah. And Tyke moving to safety, I think, was a good move because, a year ago, I really believe that Jordan Whitehead was going to really make that back end, something special like it was, the Super Bowl year. And Jordan just really didn't produce. He just wasn't the player that we remembered. And then, of course, he got in the car accident before the final regular season game against Carolina and has not played since, I think he's passed physicals, but he's worked out for some teams. But that could be the end of his career, which is tragic, to hurt yourself like that in an automobile accident. But moving Tyke to safety, that kept him on the field for 100% of the snaps if you want, instead of 75 or 70% in nickel. That's been big. Christian Izzian's been a big contributor, except he's been hurt. Now he's healthy again, so you got a little backup there at nickel. I remember the game in Detroit last year, pretty early in the season. Izzian wound up playing corner before the thing was over. He was out there doing whatever he could from any position in the secondary. So this group of receivers Detroit has, though, man, I'm on St. Brown. I mean, he's as good a receiver as he is in the NFL, and the Lions' offense is about as balanced as you could hope for. They've got it. They've got it all. Jared Goff,
Jameson Williams can take the top off.
Oh yeah. You
Laporte
got
is a
the
good tight end.
Laporte is a great tight end. You've got
Love their backs.
Montgomery,
And
um,
Gibbs.
and Jamar Gibbs. They can run, and you got kind of a thunder and lightning approach back there. They're loaded. You got to prepare for everything. And the other thing they're going to do, and this is just Dan Campbell, is they're going to chew kneecaps. That team, and it goes to the Tom Moore, sort of axiom that he uses, which is the team that plays the hardest, the longest wins. It's hard to outplay in terms of how hard you play. It's hard to play longer hard than Detroit. Detroit does not. They're relentless, and their coach, goes into the game telling them, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to go for it on fourth down. I'm going to do everything I can. You're in a fist fight. You're in a fist fight with those guys from the first play, and that dome is rocking. Detroit's been good now for a while. Those fans are absolutely loving it. It's a great atmosphere. Even the Bucs players have commented how cool it is to play in that building when it's rocking like that. Now, you're the enemy, and so you have to cope with the noise and all of that, but they still like it. It's a great atmosphere for football. So Monday Night Football, you got Joe Buck, Troy Aikman in this game. It's
Are
an
they
earlier
calling this game,
start.
or are they calling the other game? There's 2 Monday night games.
They're calling this one. They're
Okay,
calling this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with that. And they called the last 7 o'clock game on Monday night with the Bucs as well. So both Monday night games. The last one was I think the Texans game in week 2.
Yep.
They called as well. So yeah, they get Joe and it's I really believe that whoever wins this game will be considered the front runner. Some they rank these teams every week, right? So what does that mean? Some people have the Bucs number 1 now, but I do believe that if you do it on the field and you take out Detroit just lost to Kansas City, but if you beat Detroit, I think you have a pretty good jump on the rest of the NFC for maybe securing the number 1 seed. Long way to go, but you'd be the favorite, and then you'd be going to New Orleans against a not so good Saints team. But they still have plenty of tough games to go. This thing's long way from over, and then health is the biggest thing. And what can Baker Mayfield do to stay this hot? That's the other thing. At some point, you just keep waiting for the shoe to drop, and for that ratio of touchdowns to interception to come back to earth a little bit. I think it's like 12-1 right now. He just has a 1 pick. And if he doesn't throw that one, they may win that game. So it's going to be really, really a fun. I've been up there now to Detroit, 3 times in 3 years because they played them in the playoffs a couple of years ago. Were eliminated, and then early in the season last year, week 2, 1 or 2, I think it was, and they won that game. So this is kind of the rubber match with this group with Baker Mayfield and company, and it's just going to be a great game. And hats off to Jamel Dean. He's going to be a free agent. There's nothing like a free agent contract or a free agent year for these guys to get motivated, to ball out. It's hard enough to make the NFL and stay in the NFL, and it gives you plenty of riches and all that. But it's human nature, man. There's something about guys, Rashad White, I think, in addition to being a veteran, you're in your 4th year, or your 5th year, or whatever that is, and that makes you an established player in this league. So that helps too. But I don't think Rashad White has played harder or smarter than he has this year. Like that guy, it used to be he would pick his way through the line of scrimmage, and he's a big back, and he wouldn't use his physicality. He gets downhill pretty quick now. He gets downhill quick. He gets what he can get. He's a smart player. We saw him slide down in that one game to kill the clock, or kill the timeouts rather, keep the clock moving, and and he's running really, really well. So even though Bucky Irving's going to miss this game again, and I'd be a little concerned about Bucky because of the shoulder, it's supposedly a subluxation or where the shoulder pops out, and it can obviously go back in, but it's more susceptible to that sort of thing. That's going to be an injury to watch, as is Chris Godwin. I have not heard the definitive answer on what Godwin's fibula injury is, except for it's not the same injury. It's the same bone, same fibula, but not the same injury as the one he suffered when he got his ankle dislocated against the Ravens about a year ago this week. So, that's a little daunting. That's a little scary when you're kind of in this cone of silence. But they haven't put him on IR, so that should tell you that they think it's going to be less than a 4-week injury, or they would have done so already. So I guess there's optimism there. But yeah, big game, in Motown, man. Like this is what the NFL is about. When your team is 5-1 and rolling the way the Bucs are, and so much coverage and Baker Mayfield love out there. My goodness, it's just you can't turn on the TV or a podcast without seeing him.
Well, that's why he's the favorite right now for
Yeah,
MVP. I mean, they're one of two teams in the NFL 5-1.
yeah, that's right. Them and the Colts, right?
Yeah, and he's
Yeah,
thrown one pick this year.
crazy.
One, after 18 last year.
Yeah, crazy. And then all the comebacks and all the
Yeah.
fourth quarter wins. And I mean, when's the last time? I mean, there's very few quarterbacks that can elevate that, right? Very few quarterbacks can do that. I'm trying to think. I mean, Mahomes, obviously. You've seen Josh Allen at times.
Burrow.
But Burrow for sure. Right? Burrow is still, the tragedy of Burrow is his injuries, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also the fact that he's played behind one of the worst offensive lines in football.
Thus, he's injured all the time.
And that's why exactly. Oh, you're saying there's a cause and effect there? Yeah, exactly. It drove Andrew Luck out of football. But to me, like as much talk as and look, Mahomes is great and he's got the hardware, and there's other quarterbacks that are good too. The guy that gets lost is Burrow. I believe that Burrow's as good as Mahomes in a different way. But if he just had just a little bit more help on the offensive line to protect him, and then maybe a defense to get the ball back once in a while, there's no reason Cincinnati shouldn't have won a couple of Super Bowls by now. But the fact of the matter is, Steve, is that only a few quarterbacks win the Super Bowl. And when I say few, I mean very few. Since 2016, okay, which is a long-ass time ago as football goes, there's only 3 quarterbacks, I believe, that have won a Super Bowl not named Brady or Mahomes. Is that unbelievable? Only 3 since 2016.
It's got to be further back than 16.
Well, 50. You can go to 15 because Tom won it in 15, I believe. But yeah, no, I mean just for those 2 names, Brady Mahomes, and then you throw in a Nick Foles 1 year beat Brady, right? And then you have Matthew Stafford who won a Super Bowl and Jalen Hurts, and that's it.
Yep,
Those are the only 3 guys. And Stafford has pedigree, went with a great team in Los Angeles, but he's a first overall pick. Hurts is kind of the outlaw. Obviously, Foles was stepping in for Carson Wentz and got it done somehow against Brady with the Philly special. But and go way back, right? There was a time when it was either Brady, Roethlisberger, or Manning, right? Those 3. That was, and what's weird about that is like you think, come on, like there's got to be more quarterbacks that can challenge for this thing. You think about Josh Allen and Joe Burrow, and Burrow obviously was in a Super Bowl before. Like, who's going to be that next guy? But the same guys just keep winning. And so I'm starting to think, coach quarterback league? No, it might just be quarterback league. The quarterbacks making the coaches,
Well, I think the quarterbacks make but I think it also takes the right coaches to help that quarterback. I mean, Baker Mayfield, this is his 4th team. He's finally looking like the player we thought he might be when he was drafted number 1 overall.
Yeah.
Like, Daniel Jones goes to the Colts and he looks like a completely different quarterback than he was in New York.
Because he has, I think in part, coaching is huge. It's absolutely huge. Yeah. But so is a supporting cast. Like Daniel Jones has Jonathan Taylor and a really good offensive line and some pretty good receivers. Baker Mayfield came to a team that had some remnants of a Super Bowl team and some really good ascending young players. It's the most dependent position in sports. But yeah, you're right. Some of these guys have gotten a better cast and they've been reborn. But
although Daniel Jones had Saquon Barkley for many years too, but
he did, and then they traded him and Daniel away. It's insane. I can't get the Giants. You got one guy, the quarterback's 5-1 in with the Colts, and of course this year Saquon's not doing as good with the Eagles, but last year absolutely was their MVP. But watch out for the Chiefs because you just start lining up these Super Bowl names and you go, Okay, oh, here's an outlier there. Oh, there's one there. There's really not many. There's really not many. And here's the thing: Mahomes now has Rashee Rice coming back to go with Xavier Worthy,
Yep.
and not for nothing, but Hollywood Brown showed up the other day
Yeah.
and made some big plays.
Yeah. The Chiefs
Right?
are all of a sudden one game out of that division.
Yeah.
They were
Oh,
written
they're
off for
gonna
dead a
they're
couple
gonna
weeks
win
ago.
that division. I think the Fighting Hardballs will come close, but I don't think they're gonna get the Chiefs. So right now,
I
gun
don't
to
think
my
I don't think the
head, sort of.
Broncos. I don't think the Broncos are out of it yet either. But
I don't think they're
it's
out
going to
of
be a
it.
good division.
Oh, it's a terrific division, and the Chargers are really good, and
Yeah.
and they have a quarterback too. And I thought that this would be kind of a brawl, and the way Kansas City started, I thought, ooh, they could take themselves right out of this race really fast. But no one ran away. No one ran away from them. And
Nope.
as much as I like the Broncos, I just it's Mahomes, it's Reed, it's the pedigree, it's the knowing how to get there, right? It's Travis Kelsey and Taylor Swift. I don't know what. There's something about the Chiefs that it's going to be winning time again here real soon, and I just think that there's only a few quarterbacks that know how to close it out, and what I'm wondering is Baker Mayfield one of those guys? Is Baker Mayfield got the clutch? Gene to at this point in his career, 30 years old, third year in Tampa Bay. Can he withstand these injuries and continue to put his team on his back? And can he get there? Can he get to a Super Bowl? I think he can. But and to me, it's because the NFC doesn't have it's Patrick Mahomes, or it's Josh Allen, they've got Jalen Hurts, right? But Jalen Hurts is more of a function of the Eagles, not just Jalen Hurts. So should be fun. Should be a fun race down to the wire. All right, we got a pretty good mailbag question coming up here in just a second. But first, hey, get on down to Breitling Boutique International Plaza Mall. You know where that is, over by the airport, kind of sandwiched between Raymond James, if you will. And what you want to do is go to the center of the mall, second floor. That's where you can find the Breitling Boutique. Now, the Breitling Company has been making Swiss watches now for over 140 years. And they've been at International Plaza for going on 6 years. And you talk about a great store with customer service. This is the one for you. Go in there and spend some time. If you're going to buy a nice timepiece for yourself or for your wife or your husband or whatever, find out about these things. They've got beautiful watches, a great staff. You're talking about the men's watches, the chronomats that they're known for, the Navatimers. They also have ladies' watches for your wife, your girlfriend. These are sports watches. They're incredibly durable and they're absolutely beautiful. And they come with a whole bunch of different colored wristbands that she can choose from. And while supplies last, and they are running out fast, I'm sure, although not that so many years ago or months ago, I saw the Bucs team watch in the window. They have 32 NFL teams and 32 NFL team watches available at Breitling Boutique. Again, while supplies last. These are chronomat watches for men. They have the team colors as the face of the watch, the logos inside. Go to tampabay.com. You're likely to see an ad with the Buccaneers team watch from Breitling Boutique. It is Breitling Boutique. That's where you want to go. And make sure when you do, you tell them that you heard about it right here on Sports Day Tampa Bay. All right, we had a mailbag question about the Bucs here, I think.
Yeah, Steve had tweeted. He says, "Let's assume Jason Light goes all in at the trade deadline this season.
Yep.
What players do you think he would give up in a possible trade scenario to get a premier pass rusher? Rashid White seems like a viable candidate."
Yeah, I don't think Rashad's going to be that guy, and we talked about this a little bit before the pod when we saw the question. First of all, I don't think you give up players because that's what you're trying to acquire, not lose, and so you want to keep as many of your players as you can. Now, if there's some guy that it's at the very bottom of your roster that some team wants as a throw-in, sure, if it's a deal breaker, but predominantly teams are trying to get draft picks, right? And that's always tough. And I think the one thing about this organization and why they haven't pulled off any draft day trades in probably forever, not draft day, but draft trade deadline day, why they haven't done that mid-season is that Jason Light values his draft picks too much. He just values his draft. I mean, look at this roster and the way it is built. There are players that have been part of this team from the last 4 drafts in particular. And I think the last couple they may not have cut anybody. So he's very good at selecting players, and he knows that they're like currency in the NFL. And if you finish in the bottom third, you're not picking that high to begin with. But I still think that he's not going to trade a player necessarily unless there was the 53rd guy on his roster, and B, he really does value the draft picks. Now, if he was going to do it, who do you do it for? It's really subjective. It's about the player himself. But if you're talking about positions now, I would say receiver would be an easy get. I would say that you could probably find a team that would cut loose a receiver maybe in his final season that could help you. I don't have a list of those players right now, but that's one, and only because it's insurance against any more injuries. Look, if they go out there and Sterling Shepard gets hurt, or Mike comes back and re-injured something, or Chris, you're gonna have to address me and Steve. And so I think finding another target for Baker, who's pretty adaptable to new players, might be a good way to go. Certainly you always want to try to beef up the pass rush if you can. I don't know that you're going to get anything from that standpoint. There's not a lot of edge rushers that are going to fall out of the sky and say, "Come play with me." But the receiver would be a consideration, I believe, on this team. If I think their offensive line, even injured as it is still pretty hopeful about what they would get. Or I would say maybe you can find a guard that's a little better than Luke Haggard, right? I just you if you can solidify that offensive line, there's no tackles out there. I think that Heck is going to have to continue to do what he's done, which is adequate. And this is a big game, for him, because you got Aiden Hutchinson, who's an absolute monster. And the last time they went to Detroit, they had Justin Scully playing tackle, and Aiden Hutchinson got about 4.5 sacks. Really should have been 5. They credit him with 4.5, and he just wrecked the game. Just completely wrecked the game. Bucs still managed to win somehow, some way. Still not sure. I have to go back and watch how that was even possible. But you need your guys. You need your guys. So if you could help yourself at guard, I think Mike Jordan's coming back this week. He practiced a little last week, and he started the first 2 games before he got hurt. At guard, if you just get one of those guys back, you probably be okay. But I could definitely see if somebody fell out of trees for you, especially an interior offensive lineman that was really, really good, maybe you pull the trigger on that just because you don't have a lot of depth. Like if you watched Elijah Klein the other night, I think he was the one that gave up that pressure that flushed Baker out for the 3rd and 14. Could be wrong, but I think I'm right about that. So receiver, which isn't hard to find, veteran receiver, maybe somebody that Baker's played with or not, but just to have a dude, right? Just to have a guy that's made plays in this league, and maybe a bigger guy, because what you're left now with are really smaller guys that are 5'10" and under, and that's not necessarily the way you want to go in this league.
And Rick, the Lightning traded a goalie on Wednesday. Not Andre Vasilevsky. No, not Jonas Johansson, but Phoenix Copley.
Okay.
Who they picked up on the waiver wire right as the season began. Presumably as insurance for Andre Vasilevsky in case, if you remember in training camp, he didn't play much. It was maintenance, whatever it was.
1 game, I think.
Yeah. So they picked him up off waivers from the Kings. Well, the Kings have an injury at goalie, so they need a goalie. So now they've traded for him to get him back for future considerations.
All right. Well, I mean, the good news is they must be confident in Vasilevsky's health, or they wouldn't have done that, right?
Yes.
So I'll take it.
Yes, and if you saw the games Monday and Tuesday, Monday Johansson was in that, but Tuesday night Vasilevsky looked great.
Yeah.
I mean, the goals they gave up weren't on him. He looked great. So
yeah, they got a little better defense around him. He'll be Vasi again, but well, that's interesting. At least it's a clean bill of health from that standpoint.
Yep. So Lightning don't play again until tomorrow night. They'll have a back-to-back in Detroit and Columbus, Friday and Saturday.
Back on the road. Kind of weird. They had 2 games on the road, came home for a few days, now back on the road again.
Well, with 2 days off days, and you're in the same time zone in that, they decided to fly home and spend Wednesday off day in Tampa, and then they'll practice this morning and then fly out this afternoon.
Shoot, I think that's smart, man. It's such a long season. Anytime you can sleep in your own bed,
Yep.
I'm all about it. All about it for sure. There was also, you saw the other night, Blake Snell of the Dodgers, which is weird to say. He went out there and, in part because the Dodgers bullpen stinks, but he went out there and threw eight strong innings in a Dodgers win. That's right, folks. You can leave Blake Snell in the game for 8 innings. And I heard I heard Joe Madden. It was a little uncomfortable because it's kind of like Rays on Rays crime, but like former Rays manager Joe Madden, who embraced analytics as a tool, but not as something that should control baseball. He was kind of rapping on the Rays, going back to that World Series where Blake Snell was lifted after what, like in the 6th inning at some point.
Yes, he was just
Fifth,
getting to the third time through the order. The Dodgers were completely a mess. I mean, had no clue, no answer for him. And
he was
as soon as
dominant.
they took him out, the body language of the Dodgers changed, and sure enough, they came back and won that game and ended the series. That was Game 6.
And it's something that'll go on, Kevin Cash's tombstone, I suppose, but he's got to wear it, and Madden was just reiterating, as he has. I've seen him talk about it, and it's in his book. He doesn't like analytics and those who have come up with this stuff to make decisions to run baseball. He thinks it's a tool, a good tool, an important tool. But to him, managing has to be something you do, from the gut, like your feel for your ball club, for the health of the ball club, for matchups, for just, when a guy is on the way Snell was.
Well, that's the thing. He was pitching
day.
the game of his life.
Yeah.
Analytics doesn't tell you that. You don't know that's going to happen. You don't know if a guy just broke up with his girlfriend the night before and is a head case and isn't ready for something. Right. I mean, there's all kinds of things that go into sports. I mean, as much as we want to say these players should just be like robots and go perform and be at their peak at all times, it's not the way it is. I mean, they have lives. They have wives. They have kids. They have friends. They have parents that have issues. They have whatever. I mean, little aches and pains that they're not quite right. Like, it just, there's so many things that analytics can't tell you. It's a tremendous tool. And over the course of a 162 game season, it generally works out. Much like you go to the casino and play blackjack. Yeah, you can win big for a night or 2 or 3, but go over there for every night for 2 years straight. You're going to lose. The house is going to win. That's just the odds. In a 7-game series or a 5 or a 3-game series, which some of the baseball playoffs are, like, analytics don't have its time to work itself out. It's a great tool, but it can't be the end-all, be-all. When Blake Snell's dealing, you got to leave him in. I mean, Blake Snell the other night goes 8 innings. He's the first pitcher since Don Larson pitched a perfect game in the postseason to go 8 innings and face the minimum number of batters. Because Blake Snell gave up 1 hit and picked off the guy after
and erased him. Yeah. I mean, there's dominant, and then whatever the hell that was insane. But that's in the Rays' long history of acquiring great players, drafting great players, developing great players that get to the majors. The David Prices, like, Snell was the one that got away. Snell was the one you should have gone to the mat for and kept in Tampa under any circumstance, because he's pitched well everywhere he's been since then. Whether it was the Padres and now the Dodgers. There's so much irony, cruel irony for the Rays to see him in a Dodger uniform doing for the Dodgers what he could have done against them for you. And, he's won a couple Cy Youngs. I mean, guys, but probably a borderline Hall of Fame player at this point.
Well, and it's not so much he got away, because that happens, but they didn't get anything in return, basically. I mean, none of the players really panned out.
That's probably more.
You gave away David Price, but you got Willie Adames back in the trade. And it took a few. He was really young. It took a few years, but you go, okay, we gave up David Price, and he went on to win a Cy Young, but you got Willie Adames back,
right?
Who did great things for you, and then that got you Drew Rasmussen, who's really the ace of your staff right now, as long as McClanahan continues to be hurt. And so you see stuff, but for the Snell trade, there's just really nothing there.
Yeah. No, it was tough. And, Seattle had taken a 2-0 lead in their series against Toronto, and then Toronto came in the first game in Seattle and just bashed the ball. Just bunch of home
got down
runs.
2-0 early, and you thought,
they
this
did.
is going to go quick.
Yeah, they did. Crowd was into it, and then bam.
They won 13-4. So
yeah. So the Bats woke up at the right time, and now we've got ourselves a series. But probably, I mean, just think about Los Angeles, either Toronto or, small market like Seattle. I'm all about Seattle because I like their ball club, I like everything about them. But I wonder, such a ratings thing, right? I wonder how the nation will react to two West Coast teams, going at it.
well, as
I
long as
don't
the
know.
Dodgers are a big name brand. I mean, they're not the Yankees brand, but they're
right there.
I mean, the Cubs, Yankees, those are probably the biggest brands in baseball.
Yeah, they're right there. Yeah, for sure.
Now, if it's a
Arizona,
Blue Jays Brewers series,
yeah, Blue Jays Brewers, Blue Jays Arizona, something like that. It would be, that'd be a little different, but I'll watch. I will definitely watch. I'm a baseball fan, and it's still Midsummer Classic, so it's gonna be fun. Gonna be fun to see how it pans out. Although there'll be a lot of belly aching if the Dodgers win. You can't get the World Series. You spend so much money, and then it leads to conversations about CBAs, and then the players all walk out, and we don't have baseball next year until, I don't know, maybe this time.
Well, we'll have it next year. It's 2027.
Is it 27? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So the CBA expires, I think, December 1st of 2026.
All right.
So
I got a whole year.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
okay.
Most likely there'll be a work stoppage. Now, whether it actually impacts one game, one day of spring training, we don't know. But come December 1st, 2026, you're almost guaranteed there'll be a lockout or walkout or whatever. But in December, who cares? In January, who cares?
True.
You start getting to February, now you're starting to affect spring training, and so then now it matters somewhat. So, but who cares about if leagues sit out in the off season? Does anyone really notice?
No.
I mean, you may know that, but it doesn't impact a workout. It doesn't impact a game. It doesn't impact. I mean, this happens a lot. Where baseball a few years ago locked out. If you remember, they came back, I think it was near the end of or beginning of March. They did a short spring training, delayed the season by 1 week, and then started.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah,
and
they've had these labor disputes before.
But the one thing that happened there, if you remember, there was a lot of injuries early that season.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the one thing the lockout did is that the trainers and the teams had no contact with the players. They were all working out on their own.
On their own, yeah.
Were they doing the right things? Were they doing what they should be doing? Were they, all that stuff that the teams monitor and keep tabs on, they couldn't.
Yeah, they couldn't, yeah.
If you remember Wander Franco came back jacked.
Yeah, he did.
Well,
he had to look good.
He struggled a little bit, but
we know why he had to look good now. So
now we know. We didn't know at the time, but
we didn't know what he was doing then. Yeah. No, he did. He got in. He did not miss arm day.
Yeah, but then he got hurt.
Yandi.
But he got hurt, and it was like core injuries and things like that. But you wonder how much of that was,
lifting.
The teams had no control over it. So did players lift too much, lift too little, do whatever? There was a lot of those injuries that more than normal. It seems.
Same thing with pitching. Did they throw too much on the side and not throw enough? That was a messy. I don't want to relive that year in my life, much less for baseball. That was god awful. I mean, covered a team that most Tampa thing ever wins the Super Bowl during COVID, and never got to meet Tom Brady in person until the year was over. So
Lightning won a Stanley Cup and a bubble, and the Rays won a World Series.
The Rays won a World Series
in a bubble, essentially
in Texas, basically, right?
Yeah, they were in San Diego before that, and then that was
Crazy.
in a bubble. In Texas, I think they let some fans in, but not many.
Most Tampa thing ever. Most Tampa Bay thing. We can't have nice things. We just can't. Not sure why.
Although we did invent the boat parade during that time, which is pretty cool.
Well, that's true. And if that was made out of COVID or in response to COVID, it was well worth it.
Yeah, it was, because you couldn't hold a parade the traditional way.
That's right.
And we got all this beautiful water here, so.
And the Lightning had started that tradition, and the Bucs were just happy to continue it. That was one of the coolest moments I've had in sports, when I was able to go. They had a media duck boat, in the middle of that thing, those big yellow ones, and of course we were practically hitting each other's sterns when we were going down the river there. But that scene on the waterfront, the number of people that came out, just loved everything about it, including the Lombardi toss. Just start to finish, man. That was cool. That's why you play the games, as they say. So we will play this game tomorrow. You can always get mailbag questions in. We'll do one or two sometimes during the night. You can do that on Twitter at SportsDayTV, or X as they call it now. Or my Twitter address is at NFL Stroud. My email is rstroud@tampabay.com. Yeah, so go down to Breitling Boutique. Check out the beautiful NFL watches, 32 team watches while supplies last. You're going to want to see these things. You're going to want to buy one. It's going to be a great timepiece for you. And while you're there, stop in, get a watch for your wife, your girlfriend, sports watch, lots of different colors of wristbands for her to choose from. It is Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. And make sure you let them know that you heard about it right here, please, on Sports Day Tampa Bay. For Steve Versnick, I am Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. Have a great day, everybody.